Welcome back to the Turn My City Up podcast. We're back with my boy E. We got some got some news. We're gonna have my boy National here soon to be a little host. So, we can have a nice little trio here on the pod. Actually, get
Nash
some.
gonna hop in his Ernie bag. He's gonna be our Ernie. I feel
Yeah,
like.
exactly. So we're gonna have a nice little trio in here so we can get some more traffic to the channel to the pod. Um, y'all know, like I always say here, I want to have people on here that's actually trying to talk basketball.
Yes, sir.
We're not trying to do all that extra. We're not trying to do all the narrative talks and the goofy stuff.
Hey, and Nash is good about it too. He'll tone either one of us down if we're getting off the rails a
Yeah,
little bit. He'll reel us back in.
yeah,
So I'm excited for that.
yeah. That's gonna keep it in check for sure.
Oh yeah.
But we gonna just jump into some Suns.
Y'all jump
I might
straight into
ask
it.
him after the Suns about some of these other teams, but first we got to talk about the Suns like last 5 games. So let's get into first. We have to first bring up the nasty L in San Antonio.
Yeah.
So for
I
me,
mean,
yeah.
no, go ahead. Yeah.
No, you go ahead. I was just gonna say, obviously we've bounced back since then, but we can just touch on that a little bit because that game was insane. To me, I just thought it was just really them clearly
I think
thinking they were just gonna smoke the Spurs because of who wasn't playing and
exactly.
stuff like that.
Exactly. No, I think it was like the last, like, okay, sky is falling, like crash and burn moment of the season where like
Yeah,
it felt like the Suns fans' urgency was higher than the players' urgency was. But like we touched
yeah,
on it last time, like I feel like they're just on a different clock than we are. Like in their heads, they're probably like, this is really game 35, game 40 of this whole process taking place, right? Do I
yeah.
still think that excuses a loss to San Antonio where you score 102 points? No. But, I
Right.
think, shout out to Ant Too Shifty on the timeline. He's always got some good stuff. But I think
Yeah,
one of the benefits of losses like that is you start to see so many different looks and so many different approaches to how teams are going to guard you, right? So where
hmm,
Suns came out maybe a little bit lackadaisical and then had to really press in a game against San Antonio with no Wemby to, I think we got it down to a tie game with like a minute left or something. Book hit some big shots. We were playing, climbing back into it that whole fourth quarter. You start to really, in a backwards way, get some really important like crunch time reps with a team you should
yeah,
be in crunch time with, right? But at the end of the day,
right.
like it's you
A
wanted
little
to look at it
practice.
glass full, like you get some positive exposure to how
Yeah,
teams are going to guard you, how different looks you're going to get with that big three out there. So that was the last real crash and burn moment. I think it's been pretty positive since then. 3-1 since then, I think. But
yeah,
yeah, man, that was nasty. That's a bad L looking at the standings right now.
yeah. I agree with you too. Like that was the last like crash and burn. Even though I've seen a lot of the fans, I understand like being upset because we got smoked in OKC too. But even
Yeah.
me, and then like you said, like and too shifty. When I was watching that game too, for the most part, I really didn't think like the process was bad. Like I felt like even Book had said it after we won the game. After that, he felt like they watched the film and they got like hell. They were open a lot. Like they were moving the ball and stuff. That OKC, it just
Yeah.
wasn't falling. And then OKC on the flip side, like that first half was like making everything. Like we was
Yeah.
contesting a lot of that stuff. They was making it. So sometimes that just happened. But I didn't think that one was the same type of L as the Spurs one. Like I felt like we was still like the process was still a little better. Like we got smoked. They look bad because they ain't had their best player, but that's a good team over there, bro.
It's a
A
good
really good
team,
team.
man, and I think it's OKC especially is like the ultimate test for like of these 48 minutes, how many of you are going to be engaged and what percentage are you going to be engaged throughout this game? Because so
Yeah,
much of getting open on a back cut, relocating after a pass, and like an Isaiah Joe is so good at that, at
yeah,
passing and then relocating immediately into what you wouldn't think would be an open jump shot, but they catch you sleeping on some help side and you get burned. So they're young, they're athletic. They're ready to run. I thought it was a trap game as soon as I heard SGA was out, to be honest with you. What
I
disappointed me
swear.
more than anything was just like the lack of energy. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it's it's kind of like how we talked about in the Milwaukee game. There's times where you just don't want to see the team like lay down. I felt like I remember it was second quarter, I think it was, and it probably was 34-35 or something right along those lines. Like
Hmm.
OKC was hitting tough shots, and I was like, okay, we're in for a game. For the game
Yeah,
to get as out of hand as it did with like, back half of the second quarter, 6 minutes left in that second quarter, I was just like, I feel like they knew what they were in for. I think they knew they were in for a really engaged team for 48 minutes. And they kind of laid down and stayed in their process, but never really put their foot on the gas. You know what I mean? Like defensively, at
yeah,
least. Like you
for
said,
sure.
they generated good shots and they've really, really taken that and ran with that in the last two. I mean, the offense has looked just smooth. Like it's really clicking again. And I was
Hmm.
waiting for them to get back to that since the All-Star break. I feel like it's taken a while.
Yeah, they like you said, I think that OKC game too, like, because I felt like they were playing good defense at first, but then it's just like naturally when you brick it and miss your shots, even us, like be it like a run or something, us just hooping,
Sure.
like you missing shots, your defense fall off a little bit because you upset, like, bro, why I can't make a shot? So it was like,
Yeah, you might not be running back as quick. You might not be matching up
yeah,
as quick. So I get it. I mean,
God,
it's definitely like that human element to hoops that we forget about
yeah,
sometimes. And as a fan, you're watching from the TV. Your only expectation is execution. But I feel like
yeah,
there was an
exactly,
element of like, man, we're on the road, and these young guys they came to play today. We getting our ass whooped, and they're hitting tough shots that we're not hitting. So
yeah,
I was definitely frustrated from a effort point of view, but I
yeah,
could take
same,
away that at least, hey, we're starting to really feel what our identity and what we're trying to accomplish offensively, which is what I feel like the result of that has been New Orleans and Cleveland. It's been crystal clear.
yeah. I was gonna say too, I feel like like he said, even I'm glad he said it too, like on the thing, because we was kind of saying it after that game. Like I had the spaces, it was like and too shifty, and a lot of us in there, like saying like because I know a lot of people have been, you know, pointing out how we ISO too much and like how they don't know like what we doing on offense, and we get
Yeah,
like stagnant and stuff. But I was like, a good sign from that was that they were like moving the ball, like the process was good. There was a lot of ball movement, but a lot of them wasn't hearing that at that point because we had just got blown out, so a lot of them was kind of
right.
like, no, we should beat that. But I was like, I'm glad he said that on TV, and then he emphasized what I've been mostly been saying, like offense 9 times out of 10 is not our issue anyway. It'd be us
Yep.
like actually wanting to guard, and he but literally basically said that after he won it, like he was like, we're gonna get good looks. We're gonna move the ball. Blah, blah, blah. He was like, it starts with defense, and he said it again. Last night when we beat the Cavs, like it really started with their defense and them, locking in on that end and bringing that energy, which they did again
100%.
versus the Cavs. Which I was scared going into that game too because for a minute now we've struggled against like them quick guards that trying to get in the lane, and they got two of them.
Yep.
And I thought we did a really good job at that yesterday. So
Yep.
it's
No,
like,
100%.
hmm what do you
I
feel
think
like?
especially after the last Cleveland game, the way Garland came out, that was going to be the
Frying,
main focus, right? Was like take away the 3-point shot early. Don't let these guys dribble into rhythms,
yeah,
and stay in front of the ball at the point of attack. It's like I think that was the first time we saw D Mitch this season. I can't remember if they played him earlier in the year, but I
hmm
thought just the execution on him from they threw him a lot. I mean, I was rewatching the game in the fourth. He saw a lot of KD. They
hmm
threw Book on him at times. They threw Beal on him at times. Royce spent some time on him, and I thought
yeah,
everybody just like a committee effort did a really solid job. Just not letting him get into spots comfortably. He's obviously still a great shooter. I think he ended it with 28 or 26 somewhere in the ballpark, but it was definitely
hmm
a struggle. He had to get to the line a few times, and he
yeah,
never really established a rhythm where he took off and was like a real threat to get the whole engine rolling. So I thought it was a good effort just based on that. Like the expectation is, guards walk into Phoenix a lot of the time. We've seen it multiple times this season. Get into a rhythm early and it coasts the whole game. And they
fry
definitely
us,
made it a
yeah,
take that away.
for sure. Yeah, I was like, what do you think? One of the things you've been seeing really like about the defense for me, I think to me, I think we was talking about how like they haven't been good most of the year, like navigating screens. I think
Yep.
lately they've been doing a better job. Like even if they're not getting over, like they communicating. Like I feel like a lot of the times this year.
100%.
You don't know who they don't know like if they switching or staying. Like dudes be lost like no like the communication the last like 4 games been
Yeah.
like fire to me. Like if you're not gonna get over, call it out, like call a switch, say you're gonna switch. Like they've been doing a real good job of that. Like I was watching that and I seen that too.
Yeah.
Like they're doing a good job passing off guys. So they Mitchell and them ain't just getting to the rim when they want to. Levert and all those guys.
Yeah, everything just feels like a second and a half faster right now. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if there's action on the backside happening, those peel switches are happening sooner to where, e.g., take the flare, or, KD run with
Yeah.
the man at top of the key, whatever it is, a lot of these things are processing quicker. That's one of those things
Mm-hmm.
that definitely was just time and reps, and getting
Mm-hmm.
used to where guys are going to be, and what the scheme and the goal is.
Yeah.
But once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's like now these things are starting to move a little bit quicker. I see Book especially has done a really solid job, who I was super harsh on a week and a half ago, calling out switches, bumping guys off, making sure they're in
Yeah.
their spots when he's out of position,
Communication. Mm-hmm.
recognizing, communication, recognizing where he's supposed to recover to, and catching himself when he makes a mistake. I remember in the New Orleans game, there was one clip I liked early in the second quarter. I want to say it was Trey
Mm-hmm.
Murphy hit a three where he just fell asleep on a little flare on the strong
Yeah.
side of the ball. And, it was a half-second thing, but he recognized it immediately. So it's like, it's one thing to be asleep at the wheel and 1, 2, 3 possessions go by and you keep making these same mistakes, but it's clicked. Like D-Book saw that right away. You saw him clap his hands and
Mm-hmm.
go like, I know where that possession died for us defensively. Is because I fell asleep on this flare. So just little
Yeah.
things like that is what you want to see. Like all these guys have a high basketball IQ. They're all very aware. And if the 5 of them play on a string, it's like they're better than the sum of their parts, right? Like we don't have a standout
Mm-hmm.
defender in like the traditional sense, a guy that's going to make all defense at any position. But all these guys are capable of putting together strong defensive stretches. I think I
Mm-hmm.
saw Phoenix. I think they showed it last night. Phoenix, since the All-Star break, is top 4 in half-court defense for the year.
Yeah.
They've
It's
climbed
getting
the
better and
top
better.
10.
Yeah.
Nobody had that expectation. I
At
mean,
all.
credit to a lot of that. KD, he's had a monster season.
Yeah.
But guys collectively have bought into what it's going to take for them to be good on that end of the floor. And I think we're starting to see it again a little bit, little by little.
Yeah. Shout out Vogel. I was gonna say too. I think people was making like them jokes. You remember? This had to be like 4 or some games ago, like that. I think it was right after the Spurs lost when they was doing media and talking to Vogel, and Vogel had said, um, they had a talk and all that. And he was talking about they held some guys accountable. I remember I had tweeted like eyes
I
like held
remember
guys
that.
accountable because I wanted to see like it on the court, and I immediately felt like I seen it. Like I felt like a lot of people, like you said, like me and you both, like a lot of people's getting on Book about his up and down defense. Vogel had said it publicly too, like about Book's defense being up and down this year. After that, I felt like he stepped it up on defense. Then to me, like after that, everybody's been making, you know, everybody's been talking about how Bill's kind of like taking on that point guard role more, and
Yep.
he's like stepped up on the defensive end. He's been the guy to like run the like point. He
Yeah.
won too to me is put like emphasis on driving. Book's doing a lot of it too. I think the whole team's doing it, but Bill's like leading the charge and like getting into the paint, like so where we can get like the other teams in rotation because he's getting in the paint whenever he wants to. Because he really can whenever he want to
Yeah.
get in the paint, he can go get in the, he can go touch the
I
paint
think
whenever he wants to.
anytime he wants. And I think that's
Mhm.
like he brings back a little bit of kind of that, and obviously completely different skill sets. But I remember a thing
Mhm.
that was so lethal about Chris Paul being here was when he would
Mhm.
snake his way in and out of the paint, keeping his dribble
Mhm.
alive and surveying north and south. It would allow for
Mhm.
so much of these guys to rotate around that. It would allow for so much of
Mhm.
Nurk to clear space in the paint for a flare or a pin down. I feel like
Yeah.
the Suns didn't really have that layer earlier in the season, even when he first came back to the lineup, just because of what his role was in the offense. But now
Yeah.
you see him get all the way down to that restricted area, and what I think could have been a few layups for him a couple times the past few games, and we'll talk about his aggressiveness or lack of in the past few games
Yeah.
later on. I think keeping his dribble alive and surveying has added such a layer to this offense where late in shot clocks, now we're attacking mismatches, whereas
Mm-hmm.
before the ball would just hover around the perimeter. And it's a huge addition to this team because, like you said, we have guys that can get to the paint in Book occasionally or Katie occasionally, but really their game is predicated on finishing in their spots, which a lot of times is going to be 12, 10 feet out,
Yeah.
elbow line extended. So for him to be able to be that consistent rim pressure guy is just so beneficial for him.
Yeah. I was like, people was making jokes like, because me and you been telling people like, because people been trying to be harsh on Bill because his numbers ain't
Insane, bro.
insane. I'm like, bro, are y'all watching the game? He's a third option now, but he's doing what he needs to be doing. Like people was coming into my mentions like, oh, he's making this amount of money and he at this amount of
Right,
points. I'm like,
right.
bro, are you watching the game? That's not all
And
of
he's
like you
third
know.
option really in name only sometimes. Like there'll be nights
Yeah,
where he's fourth, fifth in shots.
fifth, I swear.
And it's all game flow, right? There'll be a night where I
Hmm.
think last night him and Royce took the same amount of shots. I think in the New Orleans
Hmm.
game, him and Grayson took the same amount of shots. There'll be nights where
Yeah,
Grayson shoots 14, 15 times. And that's all
yeah,
based off the strength of the looks they're creating. Like Grayson's
right.
50% from the three-point line this year. You want to get him up at 12, 10 attempts if you can. Like that's going to be a productive night for Phoenix from three-point line. So
Yeah,
for him to
exactly.
be able to take on that reduced scoring role and actually still be an efficient cog on both ends, it's just a testament to the quality of player he is. Like that's not a lot of guys would be able to step in and go, yeah, I'm going to still give you a solid night. And I scored 9 points and you came
Right,
from a team that you were relied on for 25 a night. You know what I mean? So,
right.
I mean, it's definitely something still left to be unlocked there where I think he should be at 15, 16, 17 a night. But that goes
Hmm.
back to what we were saying. I think he's finding that groove between being aggressive, setting the table, and
Hmm.
attacking mismatches. Like there's still a balance he's trying to find.
Yeah, and I think he'll find it because he's too good of a player. And
For
I
sure.
just seen someone on TL one of the, I think it was Chandler Parsons or one of them trying to make it like throw in narratives or trying to start something as if like Bill's upset. Like, bro, you know how I know he's not upset? Because of that video I keep reposting of him
Uh-huh.
talking to his guys at his
Yeah.
his camp,
He
telling
knows
them
what it
forget
is.
they scored, fuck they scored, it don't matter. What else are you gonna do to impact the? If he's preaching
Exactly.
that to us, I think he don't really believe that. Like he's not going home upset. Like he had his years where he was getting all the shots, getting the buckets. Like, bro, he literally like it was a reason it was us or Miami. Like he's trying to go places to win where he ain't got to do as much. He's
Yep.
fine, bro. There's gonna be times in the playoffs too where he gonna go for 30. Like it's gonna be
And
times
if
in playoffs where
anything,
he's the one cooking.
if he's upset right now, it's for no other reason than he probably knows there's some shots that he should be hitting right now or taking,
That's
right?
all it
Like
is. Yep,
there's
exactly.
there's no issue with his role or his responsibilities. Like he doesn't need nobody to remind him the caliber of player he is. You see Katie and Book in the presser saying we actually want him to be more aggressive. Like if there's
Hmm.
any discomfort or displeasure coming from Brad, it's just that I think he knows there's a couple shots that he's not hitting right now that normally fall, or he's getting to some
Yeah.
spots and passing up looks that he should normally take. And it's
Hmm.
all a rhythm thing. He's going to find it in the next 5 games, 6 games, in this stretch where the Suns are going to continue playing meaningful playoff level basketball. I'm completely confident of that.
Me too. It was funny too because remember yesterday I think he had missed a midi, and then the ball ended up coming back to him, and he hit like the floater after that. He like slapped his leg, like damn,
He's
like come
throwing his
on,
hands up like this, like
yeah,
God.
you know, like you said,
He
he's
knows
missing
he's in
some
a
of
rut.
them. That midi and him and that paint right there is like that's easy money for him usually, but I think a little bit I got to do like still, his damn finger, but other than
That
that,
too, yeah.
and too, he's been shooting the ball really well still too. Like when he's wide open, he's been hitting his like catch and shoot thing. So
I
yeah,
think
I'm
as
a
he's
huge,
played
huge fan
through
of him,
too,
bro. Hmm.
I think one thing I noticed, I want to say it was 4 or 5 games back, a just random observation.
Hmm.
A lot more of his shot diet is just coming from three as he
Yeah,
initiates, reaction takes place, and he relocates early in games too, like two,
yeah,
3-point knockdowns, or at least looks from Brad early
yeah,
on, which was an issue I had earlier in the year where I was like, yo, this guy's attempts need to be way, way up. Like three,
yeah,
4 attempts from three for Brad, like that's not going to cut it. One, he's too good of a shooter, and two, there's not enough stress being put on his defender to close out and give him some room to
Mhm.
operate. So I think last couple games they've done a better job of it. Obviously, his shots are down as a whole, but if you're getting a good percentage of his looks from three, I think your offense is succeeding because he can be a
Mhm.
35-40% guy
Mhm.
and
He's hitting
get
it too.
hot and go on a stretch where he's hitting 50%. Like he's definitely
Yeah.
capable.
Yeah. Like that damn Lakers game earlier in the year. Like we know what he could do. He get hot.
Oh, for
He be
sure.
clipping. Yeah.
I want to
He's
see
been
actually what his attempts last night. Yeah,
he's
only
already one of
9
my favorite
attempts last
players.
night from the field, only 3 from 3, but he had the ball in his hands a lot, was setting the table really well. There was a game where he had like 7 or 8 looks that I just loved his flow. His
Yeah.
whole offensive approach that night was great. It was the game before the
Was it New
Denver game.
Orleans? Or was it
New
before
Orleans,
the
he
Denver
took
game?
4, but he hit 3 of them. I mean, that was a
Yeah.
blowout, so a lot of guys kind of
Yeah.
took their foot off the gas.
Exactly.
It was the Denver game. 3 of
Mhm.
11 from the field, so obviously he's struggling to shoot, but 3 of
Mhm.
7 from 3. I know it
Right.
wasn't the cleanest looking game from him.
Yeah.
7 assists on the night. He had some huge defensive plays, but I just liked where his
Mhm.
shots were coming from. I liked that
Mhm.
it looked like there was a clean attempt or two every quarter in every one of his shifts coming
Mhm.
from the 3-point line. I think that should be a huge point of emphasis for Phoenix.
Right. It's funny too. Like I always laugh when people like say like some of these scorers that are like gifted, like just talent wise and physical wise, and like it'd be funny to me when people be trying to say they can't play defense because for the longest people would try to say, "Oh, Bradley Beal
Yeah,
doesn't play defense." That's what other fans are trying to say, like, "Oh, he don't play like." You ain't been watching this year, like how he's been staying in front of the ball, getting deflections. Man, he's had a lot of
100%.
blocks this year too. And I was like, damn. And people be forgetting the bounce he has. Like he be sending guys. I want to say too, like I felt like this is what I was going to talk about too. The New Orleans games again. I felt like for the second time this year when we played New Orleans, he like bothered Zion again, like on the perimeter, like
Yep.
standing in front of him, poking at the ball and stuff like that. Like I feel like it's the second time this year where he actually he did a good job. Like when Vogel asked him to take that assignment, and he was doing a really good job of bothering Zion again to me.
Yeah, I think for anybody that's got League Pass or a way to rewatch games too, like just go watch the
Mm-hmm.
second quarter from that game.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the most impressive defensive stretches, if not the most impressive defensive stretch I've seen from a Phoenix guard all year. I mean, he
Yeah.
had CJ in a straight jacket, poked a couple
Mm-hmm.
balls loose, turned into some fast breaks. I think blocked a shot, crashing
Yeah.
glass, took the Zion assignment, which allowed the trees to stay down low. And it just
Yeah.
put together a really clean quarter for Phoenix defensively. I'm like, if anybody's got just like any kind of interest in what Bradley can do for this team defensively, I'm telling you, go run that second quarterback from the New Orleans
He was
game.
a
It's just
monster,
being
bro.
on time, being responsible,
Mm-hmm.
disciplined through screens, staying in front of the ball, matching up early, and taking that matchup seriously. Like it was a very very impressive quarter from him. And that's when Phoenix kind of started, running away with it a little bit. They ballooned it up at the end of the first, but then kept that lead in the second. And it was a
Yeah.
lot in part to do with just he was all over the place, man. It was super impressive.
Yeah. I've been, like I said, we've been people making the joke like the Bradley Beal fan club and stuff like that, like making the
Yeah,
jokes. But I'm like, bro, like y'all watching this man, like he's really like he's living what he said in that video, bro. That's like one of my favorite videos of what before he even got to the Suns.
yep.
Like I
It was doing the
posted,
rounds for sure.
yeah, like he was one of my favorite players to watch. Like in college, like I had posted not that long ago a post to me from like Facebook, be like how much of a fan I was of Bradley Beal when he was still at Florida. Like, I had posted a post from me on Facebook, posted him when he was at Florida, and I was like, man, this guy might be the best guy in that draft. Like that's how much of a fan I was of him. And now all
Yeah.
these years
You got
later,
a few of those where it's like from back in the day, you just called something out from a mile away. You had a
yeah, it's
book
just
going to
like
the Suns while he was still at Kentucky. That one's
yeah,
cold. That
that
one's
book
good to
was
have in the
yeah.
drafts.
My D book tweet is probably my favorite tweet, just because.
Yeah, bro. Those are
Shout out my
fun.
brother too that I live with. Me and him were just like always watching the Kentucky games,
Yeah.
and he was one of the first ones too. He's like, man, he's like, I like this the Booker dude, like the shooter. I was like, yeah, he cold because a lot of people was comparing him to Clay at that time. I was like, yeah, he running off what's cause, and at that
Yeah.
time we felt like Suns needed that guy. But even then,
Oh,
we kept
100%.
watching him more and more that season. We was like, oh, he could do a little more than that. Like you could
Yep.
just tell he's like that team just so talented. He just playing his role. We was like he could do a little more than that. Like if he get to a place like here where we ain't nobody, ain't no super hierarchy here. We had Bled in them, but we didn't have like that star where like we was like he can come here and learn. Like that's what I
That
got
gunner.
still to this day. Um, well, the last teams on get on the Suns. I'm gonna ask you about a few other teams, but all year I've been. As soon as we got Royce, I felt like okay, let's start him because I'm like Grayson. I feel like still Grayson, wherever lineup you put him in, I feel like he gonna eat because he's gonna get
Yeah,
open looks because he's gonna be in there with one of the stars regardless. And then he's just smart. Like I think he one of the best dudes in the league too. Like certain like shooters that attack that closeout when they trying to chase him off that line,
oh, for
especially when he
sure.
stays aggressive with it. Sometimes I feel like he'll like get chased off the line and he act like he too scared. But I'm like, dude, you have to be literally. We seen that New Orleans game. He can go dunk on somebody's head. He got a
Yep,
floater. Like he can make the right passes and stuff. But I just feel like for me, we're already sometimes like I guess it could depend on the matchup for me, but we're always gonna be a little small out there sometimes on
sure.
the glass and just even on a perimeter like guarding wings and stuff like that. Which I feel like that's a little more of a priority for us, depending on the team. I'm more like 60-40 on it now. I used to be just heavy, like, oh, Royce, but now I don't care because, like you were saying, and people saying on the TL, like, it's late in the season, so I get why they want to just shake up the starting lineup. But
Right.
how do you feel about that? Like, when we go into the playoffs, do you feel like that's just something like, oh, just start Royce, or is it like depending on the games and the matchup? Will they switch it up? You can kind of see how like
Yeah.
Monty was switching up a little bit last season, like depending on the matchup. Like I think that Clipper series, we were starting Torrey Craig, then we go into the
Corey, and then
next
they moved to
series and Torrey
Josh,
Craig
right?
wasn't even starting. Yeah,
Yeah.
like stuff like that. How do you feel like that? It's gonna
You
go down.
know, I feel like last night made me think about it for the first time, like seriously
Yeah.
go pros and cons. Where
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've seen it a few times where Royce started. I think Grayson missed a stretch, right around the All Star break or right after the All
Uh
Star break.
huh.
I can't remember what it was, where we saw EG and Royce both get a shot at the starting lineup, and
Mm-hmm.
Royce was definitely like clearly just a fit with the starters immediately. But last night it
Mm-hmm.
was really like highlighted just because one, I happened to think it was one of Royce's best games as a Sun.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Definitely.
on both ends was super active, killing closeouts, great shooting night, super active on the glass. So when I see the way it comes together with the starting unit and potentially with the closing unit, um, I see the pros because like you said, it adds a little bit more size, a little bit more versatile of a defender. I think Grayson has done what he can defensively this year, but we've seen it at
Mm-hmm.
times where it's just a guy is limited,
So,
right? There's nothing you can do with who you are physically. But
yeah.
Grace or Royce, excuse me, he adds a little bit more of a versatile defender. We talked on last pod about how he can handle a wing, he can handle a guard, he can get switched onto a big and do a good job fronting until help arrives. So
Yeah.
that kind of versatility is like, okay, I get it. If you want to, you have the firepower to jump out and score early in that first 6 minute stretch before you're bringing reserve number one off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Usually it's EG for Brad, but if that turns into Grayson for Brad, and EG gets that second quarter shift, I feel like you just turned your second unit into an offensive kind of firepower oriented unit. And that's
Yeah.
why I kind of started thinking about it a little bit more deeply for the first time, where I'm like, I'd like to see it in practice. Obviously, I don't know that we'll get the opportunity to, but
Right.
I think that'd be kind of like, especially if you're leaning small, or if you're just needing shooting in spurts, like a lineup where it's been EG, Grayson, Book, KD, or Bowl at the four. They've ran a little bit of that lineup while KD sits. And one of the bigs is like that's been one of the most efficient lineups for Phoenix all year. At the beginning, when
Right.
EG was starting, for Brad missing, that was one of their
Yeah.
best net rating lineups, right? So we've already seen it in practice perform
Mm-hmm.
pretty well. So I'm thinking you throw that out against second units in that second quarter shift and that opening fourth quarter shift. I see the pros. I also see the cons where you might throw a guy like Grayson off rhythm because it's not the same quality of looks he's been getting all year.
Right.
But that guy's been hitting shots from 30 feet with a hand in his face all year. So I think he's just a
Right.
damn good feel like that at this point. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I don't know that we'll see it in practice, but the way I'm leaning right now, I think Royce does tap into a little bit of a higher ceiling with that 5. So I'd like for Vogel to be adventurous and give it a shot, but we'll see.
Yeah, like as long as to me, like I said, depending on whatever the matchup is, I think he'll like pick and choose. He's smart. He's won a championship. He's done stuff like that before. Like depending on
Yep.
the team, like if it's a team where they got wings, like say like we might need to throw like Royce has a start, against the Clippers or somebody like that, or
Right.
just depending on what the matchup is. So I'm not
In
like
my
gonna
head,
be like
I'm like
super.
a
Hmm.
Clippers, Mavs series, even a
Yeah,
Minnesota. Like I don't want Ant seeing a first 6 minute stretch with Grayson or a D Book guarding him. Not even because I
yeah,
don't think they're capable, just as where I'm like, I need those guys doing other things on the floor for me, right? I can't
yeah,
have D Book trying to chase Ant all over the floor, right?
yeah,
You might
exactly.
throw Beal on him for some stretches, but that's why a guy like Royce out there can really serve a purpose and go out
Yeah,
and
he's saving
at
them in their
least
legs.
deter. Exactly, yeah, deter an Ant or a Luca, which you're not going to really bother these guys. These guys are superstars, but you throw the best option you have at them early.
Hmm.
Try to not establish any kind of rhythm for them. You got the firepower to keep pace the rest of the way. So I definitely see the advantage that he creates.
Yeah, I was like I said, I'm not a super like one way about it. Like whichever one starts, I'm not gonna be like, oh, what the hell is Vogel doing? Like
Yeah,
whoever he
yeah,
wants to
yeah,
call it is
exactly.
what it is. But they both gonna play, and he gonna know when. Like he gonna know like it's gonna be games where Grayson is getting targeted because we have him trying to guard a wing that he's not strong
Hmm.
enough or tall enough, athletic enough to guard. And Royce obviously does a way better job with guarding wing because Royce is
Yep,
actually more of a wing. I don't really see Royce as a guard. Royce is a wing to me. He's not
yep.
as tall as most wings, but his the wingspan is like athleticism. Like he knows, he's a wing
He
defender.
plays a little bit
So
bigger, stronger than he looks too. So I see what you mean.
yeah, so he's like he's not really like people might look at him and not think but he's a wing, bro. Like he's a wing guy and wing defender. So Vogel know they'll know when to use him. And I'm glad that was somebody we did pick up at the like that was a huge pickup because
Yeah,
we
I
have
think he's
actually
playing his
needed
best
him.
stretch right now too. I
Yeah,
don't know
we've
if you
actually
agree, but I
needed him.
think yeah, he's been crucial, and it'll be in different stretches too, which I can appreciate. There's some nights he plays 18 minutes. There's some nights he plays 30,
Hmm.
and he's just kept his head down and worked. So he's definitely been a
Hmm.
big pickup. I definitely wasn't as high on the pickup when it first took place as I am now,
Me
just
neither.
because I see skill set now. I see him putting it together. He's kind of
Yeah,
added that little middle of the floater or middle of the lane floater, teardrop shot.
yeah, he got a little
Uh,
more than I thought he did.
yeah, so it's been
Passing
it's
too.
been big. Yeah, yeah. So he's been super crucial for especially this last stretch where they've stopped playing 500 ball finally and they're starting to
Hmm.
stack wins together after a loss. He's been big.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna wrap this up. We'll make this quick for these um for the teams. I'll tell you the teams I've been watching a lot lately. Like focus on like teams I'm excited to see in the playoffs outside of the Suns.
Hmm.
Obviously, my boy over there in Orlando, Paulo. Um,
Paolo, man, he's working.
he's so nice. He's like
Is
he
he
probably
is
has
he team
entered like
Swavy?
yeah he is. He probably didn't
He's
enter. He's
official.
like he might be to the point where he might be like already my like top 5 favorite players now already.
He's
I already
nice,
like
bro.
love the player he was, dude. He's so nice to me. He's really nice.
I think
Like
I think they're a year away from where I'm like, oh, they could win a few series,
yeah,
just because their offense looks a little bit like grinds to a halt at times. But
yeah. They
I
don't got
don't
enough
even know,
shooting.
man. With some of the injuries in the East, like they're slated to play New York right now. It could get
Yeah,
interesting, bro. They could, a
yeah, for
sneaky
sure.
second round win. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think they're like a few shooters away. That's why their offense is like that because they don't got like the shooters like that.
Yeah.
But they will soon. Like I know they'll address that. They drafted one. I think they probably trying to get Jet Howard. Him because he's a
Hmm.
shooter. He just hasn't got his moment yet because they got a lot of guards in front of him over there. But I can tell they see the vision. They have brought Ingles in as like another shooter, but Gary
Yeah, for sure.
Gary Harris is a nice little shooter, but that's really what it is for them, like you said. When they get that, bro,
They need some snipers.
mm-hmm. them, and then obviously I know Suns fans hate the Mavs, but they're gonna be a problem. But
Oh yeah, bro.
yeah,
I
they're
got a
gonna be.
buddy who's a big time Mavs fan, just like Luca and Kyrie, his like top two favorite players. Like it's just those
Yeah,
guys are at the top for that's his team. Swavy is Luca and
yeah,
Kyrie. Like he loves these guys.
yeah,
So
exactly.
we've been going back and forth about their season and the Suns season all year, and they're a good team, man. Like there's no way around it as a Suns fan. If you're still hating, like they are a really serious
Bro, it
basketball
is what
team.
it
They
is.
got
They're
all
nice. The
like
pickups
it,
for PJ,
they
for
can,
Gafford was nice. Like it is what it is.
man.
Um, but yeah,
If they can keep this rhythm and stay as focused and attention to detail oriented as they have been defensively, like they can make noise. They can really win a couple series in the West. The West is interesting because I don't feel like anybody can't beat anybody. So that's what I'm really
exactly.
looking
Me
forward
too.
to. It's just
Like
who's
there's a few
matching up.
teams I think can get to the Western Conference Finals for real. Like
Mhm.
there's a few teams. Um, I'm pretty much wrap it up there. We are currently the sixth seed, I believe.
Yes, sir.
So we got a chance, especially we beat Minnesota. We played New Orleans again. We played the Kings again. Like these are the big games, and I really do think we're gonna. I think we're gonna win majority of these next 6, 7 games, whatever it is. So
I think it's
I'm
7
excited,
games
bro. It's
left.
gonna be fun. Yeah, we'll be back on here soon. Maybe this next one we'll see might be with Nash. Maybe now, we'll see, but it'll be soon. We got some exciting stuff on the way for y'all, bro. But
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, Swavy.
out, yes, sir. And we go end it there.